Everyone. Okay, is he? Righto. Welcome to the council meeting for the 18th of September. Please join me in standing for the opening karakia. Whakatati hau ki te uru, whakatati hau ki te tonga, kia mana tina te puta, kia mana tina kai, kia ana te atakura, he huka, he hau, ti hei mariora. Thank you very much. Now we have an apology from Councillor Donovan for potential absence, Councillor Goff for partial absence, Councillor Scandrick for early departure, Councillor Templeton for lateness, and we have Councillor Moore on Zoom. How are you, young fella? Can I have a mover and seconder? Pauline and Victoria. Thank you, Sam. All those in favour? Aye, against? Thank you, that's carried. We have a couple of declarations of interest from Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Templeton for public excluded items 12 and 13. Now, can I have a mover and seconder for include the supplementary reports listed on the screen? Councillor Cotter and Councillor Henstock, thank you very much. Yeah, I have to put that, don't I? Yeah. All those in favour? Aye, against? Thank you, that's carried. So, we move on to public forum. Water Cremation Aotearoa New Zealand. I'd like to welcome Deborah and Andrew, who will speak regarding this. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Debbie Richards toka wingwa. This is Andrew Bell. I've lived in Christchurch since I was 11 and my background is in nursing and midwifery. Worked in the health system until 2018 when I started the quest to bring water cremation to Christchurch. My dad died at the end of 2019. Bell Lamb Trotter looked after him, and that's how I met Andrew, and he'll tell you more about him.
I'm Andrew Bell, born in Christchurch, lived here most of my life. I've worked in funeral homes for about 20 years and run Bell Lamb Trotter for the last 10. And yeah, when Debbie came to me with the idea of water cremation, I thought, what is that? But then looked into it, looked at a couple of these facilities, and yeah, this is something that we should have been doing a long time ago. So we've started we're starting the Christchurch Water Crematorium.
The slides up here are a picture of a resumator. The one on the left is in a facility in Minnesota. I'm pictured there with Sandy Sullivan, who's the founder of resumation, invented the process with an American man. And we're standing there in Durham at a facility called Kindly Earth. So that's taken last year. So that's a picture of the technology that we plan to use.
And that one on the left is just outside of is just in St. Paul, Minnesota. 70% of people choose water over fire at that crematorium.
Why do we want to do it? It's all about reducing our carbon emission. It has a lower environmental impact than flame cremation or burial. If a flame cremated body emits around 240 kg of carbon, there's none emitted in the water cremation process. There's none emitted in the water cremation process, and the actual, with embedded carbon, it's about 28 kg.
And we're looking at giving people options. People have wanted more environmentally friendly options in funerals for quite a considerable amount of time, but there just hasn't been, there hasn't been a considerable change since 1909 when flame cremation was introduced. So it's over 100 years since technology has been introduced into this, into funeral homes. And yeah, people want change.
So the water cremation process, we place a body inside the unit. It uses 95% water, 5% alkaline solution, potassium hydroxide or lye. And it basically speeds up what happens under the ground in burial with soil hydrolysis. This is alkaline hydrolysis, is the other name for water cremation, and it's speeding up what happens as with burial. So at the end of the process, we pull the tray out from inside the unit and a person's bones are left behind. And it also generates a DNA-free sterile liquid, which is going to be released to the water treatment facility back into the water cycle. And the family receives pure white ash at the end of the process.
So similar to what happens with flame cremation, but with flame cremation ashes, they're grey because of the carbon that's in them. But with this process, they're white.
So Andrew and I are pictured here outside Christchurch Water Crematorium. The site is in St Asaph Street, 418. We are aiming to bring this high quality service with lower carbon emission at the beginning of 2025. We're hoping to have the technology here by the end of this year. And also what's left behind at the end of the process is anything that's not of the body, hip implants, dental implants, things like that, and they can be recycled. So our plan is to assimilate water cremation into the death care world in Christchurch and in Aotearoa.
With flame cremation, you actually have to remove pacemakers because they pose an explosion risk, but with this you don't have to, and they just can be sent away sparkling, brand new almost.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's it. Questions?
Yeah.
Certainly. Councillor Goff, then Councillor Henstock.
Yeah, congratulations, guys. It's really encouraging but innovative and environmentally beneficial alternative. I guess just begs the question, is there anything that local authority or council could be doing to assist you with this? Because, it's impressive.
Thank you for asking, James. We have applied for a sustainability grant, which is coming up for a decision next month, I think. So that would be nice.
Your support and getting the word out there to people would be greatly appreciated. Just spreading the word as much as we can that this is becoming an option, and to have council's support would be fantastic. Just in getting that word out there.
Excellent. Well, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Henstock, please.
Actually, that was my question, sir.
You're all good? Okie doke. Anyone else? No, that is excellent. Thank you so much for coming in and giving the presentation. Very much appreciated.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Okie doke. So now we have Eco Action Nursery Trust, students from a range of schools who will speak on behalf of Eco Action to provide us on their update. And I love what Dave and these guys do. If anyone wants to go out to mainly the east and see what they've achieved, it's certainly well worth the trip. Thank you.
Thank you, Christchurch City Council, for helping us so we can help support our community.
Kia ora, ko Tinara Aho. Eco Action gets students from 26 schools, 2 community groups and 3 retirement villages to pot on and then plant out eco-sourced native trees into the red zone. In 2024, the Trust organised 24,000 natives to be planted by students and their families, and donated 40,000 more to other planters.
Kia ora, ko Zara Tokaringa, St Margaret's College. Eco Action arranges land to plant on from Christchurch City Council parks at QE2 and Atlantis Street. Students and the community collaborate to plant and maintain the site.
Kia ora, ko Matt Whanaho. Eco Action Nursery Trust has a very successful history so far, planting in the QE2 Adventure Native Trail. And as you can see by these photos, it's already spurred some incredible growth. Some of our most successful things have been the ribbonwood, which is already 3.5 metres tall, prosma, which is fruiting, flax, which we have flowering, and bird habitats that are returning.
Kia ora, ka Lopane Toka Ingoa, Rangiru. As you can see,
There you go.
as you can see, this is the amount of school grown natives that we've planted out. In 2024, we planted out an amazing 60,000 plants, and 2025 is projected to do the same.
Kia ora, ko Willoughby Tupu Ingoa from Shirley Boys High School. We currently have 26 schools supporting Eco Action and many sponsors, including Fulton Hogan, New Brighton Fire Volunteer Brigade, and EnviroWaste.
Kia ora, ko Gemma Tuku Ingoa, St Margaret's College. What is our social value? What does the Eco Action program provide for our youth community? Well, we are gaining practical horticultural skills, building community involvement and participation, and building a sense of place by improving amenity and wildlife habitat.
Kia ora, Oliver Young, Tupu Ingoa, Shirley Boys. We also improve our quality of life in Christchurch or Tutahi, tackling the climate change emergencies throughout plant sequestering greenhouse gases, and improving personal mental health by improving well-being.
Kia ora, my name's David Newton, and thank you very much to the City Council for supporting Eco Action over the years, in particular this year for our 25 grand, thank you. It's this money that helps us along with other people's donations in doing what we do. And I'd like you to, as a council, to feel free to ask these guys questions, particularly about how they feel what they get out of Eco Action as a representation of what other students around Christchurch, about 25,000 have access to the Eco Action system. So if you feel free to ask questions, please.
Councillor Barber, please.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again. I feel like we just saw you last week at Community Board. Yeah, my question obviously is how it makes you feel to actually be involved in action and not just talk. But I'm also interested in the responses of your colleagues at school to what you're doing. Do you get positive feedback from them? So go for life.
That's a really good question, thank you. I feel like Eco Action really helps care for our Papa Tanuku and increase the native birds to Aotearoa. And the positive impact, yeah, a lot of people say it's a really cool thing that you're part of, and I try and get as many people as possible to come and join us, so it's really fun.
Yeah, for me, it's more about that personal fulfillment. Like, I know I'm doing something instead of just, seeing things happen. In terms of, like, what my peers and what the other people in school talk about, we have a lot of programs like Duke of Edinburgh and Student Volunteer Army, which kind of promote doing this kind of service, so mostly people are on board as well.
I think for me, the Eco Action Nursery Trust is just a great place to meet different people from your community and make new connections with people from other schools that you wouldn't usually meet. And it's just a great chance to learn more about different plants and garden skills.
I feel like for me, the Eco Action Nursery Trust really helps us with our sense of karakitangi and guardianship of the land. I feel like I've seen quite a few boys in my school getting instilled with that same sense, and it really promotes environmentalism.
For me, and I think for a lot of the students at Honey, it gives them an opportunity to ease their climate anxiety. And the general feedback is that when they come on to this thing, they really enjoy something and making changes.
I feel it's great being part of something great for yourself, to know that future generations will look back at it. It's a good thing. I feel there's lots of support from my school, and no one thinks it's a bad thing.
I feel like for myself and for my peers, we like feeling like we have an impact on our own communities, and when we go out into those communities, we're able to see the impact that we've had through the plant growth and the increase in the natural life, and I feel like that's a really great thing to have here.
When I'm part of the Eco Action, it makes me feel a bit more connected to everything else that's around me. When I leave a meeting at school, I feel just a bit better than I was before, and I feel just overall good about myself and raises my own self-worth.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. You don't all have to answer the same question. Councillor Kewen, this is important. So
yeah, I'll make mine simple. So whoever's best at math out of all you lot, I'll throw who's best. Okay, mine's a simple one because we gave you 25 grand, we got 60,000 trees. If we give you another 25, can we get an extra 60,000 trees?
You are definitely asking the right person. My shoulders are stuffed and my back isn't the best. I'm working full time as the other trustees.
You look good for 108.
Yes, I'm told that often. At the moment, we are confident and comfortable doing 60,000. I would not be comfortable or confident of doing any more.
Cool.
We have full-time jobs as well as this.
That's brilliant.
Okay,
It's good to know.
Sorry, I'd love to, but
Don't be sorry, 60,000 is impressive.
Okay, now we are really over time. Councillor, no, you're all right. Short one, Yanni, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's very short, but it's kind of a little bit different than the one that Councillor Kieran asked. But it's amazing and wonderful the work that you're doing. And I just wondered, is there anything else that you think council could be doing to support the activities that you choose to do? Is there a way we could support you more? Not just more trees, but just making it easier for you to do what you're doing so well.
just a short one. I feel that this is more me than the student. The long-term nature, I'm already 64. 70, I'll give up. My body will just be stuffed. There's only one person like me who's stupid enough to do this. So in order for the program to continue, the plants, the little seedlings of plants need to be provided to the school. And so if there was just the seedlings being provided to the schools, then this program could continue without me and my team being involved. Seedlings,
Thank you.
Supplier seedlings.
And one little thing I'd like to add, I've been to 2 of the planting days. I wish I'd gone to more, but Dave runs it like a military operation. The buses arrive, everything's there. It's bloody great. But the thing I like the most, you recycle those plastic bags and those other round things. Yeah, and I dare say that some of them have been used numerous times. Yeah, so well done everyone, and thank you very much for what you're doing. Good on you.
Good on you.
Thank you. We'll just take our lead. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man.
See ya.
Okay,
Sorry,
finally I welcome Kate, who will speak on behalf of Gapfiller to provide an update on where they're at.
So just before you move on, can we just get a note to get some advice around what we could do in terms of the seedlings? Is that possible? Yeah, okay, thanks.
It's all yours, mate.
All right. Kia ora, ko Kate Finity, tōku ingoa. I am the Urban Play Coordinator with Gapfiller. I just want to take this time to say thank you for the support we've received from you over the years, what we've been doing and what's coming up. I don't know if you're familiar with Gapfiller, but they were responsible for a lot of activations in the city after the earthquakes, Super Street Arcade, the Dancer Mat, a lot of activations in the East Frame, like the giant swings, the Detour pump track. Big restructure in August last year. I'm now the sole employee, just to give you a sense of what it's all about. I'm working 20 hours, but super dedicated to this mahi, people, play and place. So I say 2021 to 2025 because we had 3-year, multi-year funding, which was awesome, which set us up, and we've still got a little bit more to keep going into 2025. This is our latest project, 64 Ways of Being. Last time I spoke to you was in February 23, and we'd just received funding from the Australia Research Council. It's a long-term collaboration with RMIT in Melbourne. This is the first city outside of Melbourne that it's been developed in. We just launched at the end of June this year, so it's an urban art experience. You explore it through your app. It's audio, it's visual arts, so you're interacting with the world around you, it's augmented reality, and it's an amazing soundtrack. So this project actually financially supported 2 local creative producers, 14 local artists and musicians, and 1 poet. I'm actually doing some tours as part of the Heritage Festival, so you're welcome to come along. You can also download the app and experience at any time. So we're doing some promotions for this in October. I also coordinate Yarniki. I don't know if you've seen this in the city over the last couple of weeks. It's so fun. Makes me giggle. So we've had a great reaction to the artworks. A lot of people kind of wondering what the purpose is and what it's all for, and they can't believe we're just doing it for the love of it. There is no financial reward for a lot of these artists. They're just passionate about it. And the most response we've got is just thank you. People just seem to have a lot of gratitude for this project. And no matter how you feel about yarn bombs, this is what it's all about. It's about the people. It's about bringing people together and giving them the permission to actually play with the infrastructure of the city, these hard things that, you know, you're normally not allowed to touch. I just think that's a great way to welcome people into this relatively new city and make them feel like they're welcome and they belong. I'd even go so far as to say Yarniki cleans up the city. This is we've just installed one, and then 2 days later you can see the sign is very nice and clean. I think you can probably thank City Care for that, but I'd like to take a little bit of credit. This is our latest project, Te Kororo Tākaro. So as a lane ranger, I'm just finding it's good to have collaboration with other organisations. This is a collaboration with In Common, which was set up after the mosque attacks, and Our Stories, which are responsible for a lot of the audio tours in the city. So it's audio history, it's community events, and it's hopefully a play trail in the central city. So Te Kororo Tākaro is stories of play. We're teaching rangatahi in multicultural communities how to interview their elders about traditional games and play. Then we're having community events where these games are showcased, and then I'm going to come in and hopefully present like a cultural play trail in the city. But we're going to kind of play with these traditional games as well, so it could be projections, could be like audio that's triggered by motion sensor or like large scale play equipment. And I just think projects like this have so many different like layers to them, like youth are connecting to culture. We're also inviting and welcoming multicultural groups into the city. We did get funding from the Rata Foundation in the Ministry of Ethnic Communities, but only half of what we asked for. So we do have a boosted campaign on at the minute. It's been updated about now at 41% with like 11 days to go. But whatever we raise, up to $5,000, is match funded by Creative New Zealand and the Rata Foundation. So it's an awesome kind of crowdfunding campaign. So if you want to donate a couple of coffees, would be most welcome, or even if you just want to share that's what we've got going on. So basically, thank you. These are some activations I've done over the last couple of years. I think we've run out of question time, but if you've got any questions, or just feel free to get in touch with me.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate, for bringing us up to date with all the great things you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Oh, don't shut that door. Leave that.
Okie doke. We have received no petitions or deputations for today, so we'll move on to staff reports. Item 15, which I am happy to move, and Councillor McDonald's happy to second. We've got Ike and Brent, please.
Thanks, Matt. Despite the fairly technical nature of the resolutions on this report, at its nub it's a very narrowly constrained and relatively straightforward set of decisions for the council to make. Now, the reason I say that is that this is the first report that's come to the council about accepting or rejecting recommendations from the IHP on Plan Change 14. We've had a number of memos and information sessions about this, I think 4 information sessions and 6 memos. So you know the background very, very well, and I'm not going to repeat it here. You know that the Minister's timetabling directions for making decisions on IHP recommendations requires the Council to make decisions on intensification in and around centres, and we sometimes call that Policy 3 decisions, by December of this year, and other decisions on other parts of the IHP recommendations by the end of next year. So there is going to be a report coming to you in December on the bulk of the IHP recommendations on intensification in and around centres. And it's taking a wee bit of time to get that ready because of some rewriting that's needed for some of the provisions and clarifications that staff have been seeking from the IHP. Now, whilst that work is going to take until December, there is a very small set of the IHP recommendations that are clear and certain and can be decided now. And that very small subset of the IHP recommendations is in two areas. First one is a section of the city centre zone. Sam, thanks for putting the map on the screen there. That's Appendix A to the council report. So the bulk of the resolutions in the report are about accepting IHP recommendations for the area that's shaded in there, but excluding the area with the red lines around it. Those excluded areas in the city centre zone are being excluded because of that further work I was describing a moment ago. So they'll be ready to come to the council in December. So the bulk of the resolutions is about accepting or rejecting IHP recommendations for the shaded area there, nowhere else. The second set of resolutions is simply, thanks again, Sam, those 6 heritage items and settings in policy 3 areas, which the IHP has recommended the council delist heritage buildings. Now, those decisions can be made now, as I say, no further clarification or interrelationship with other parts of the council decisions. This is basically the same report that staff were planning on bringing to you for the council meeting on the 4th of September. You'll recall that there was an issue raised by a submitter on the eve of that report coming to the council, and that very helpfully raised some matters that required further clarification from the council, the type of clarification that this council has also been seeking of the IHP. So we got those clarifications from the IHP, and those clarifications have now been reflected in the provisions for the city centre zone that are recommended in this report. My last sort of summary of the context is that, as I've said a number of times, officers are not making any recommendations to you. The only information you can take into account in making your decision on the IHP recommendations are the IHP reports themselves and all of the information that was available to the IHP. So staff can't add to that by giving you advice, expressing opinions now, and your relevant considerations are constrained to what you see in the IHP materials, not what people are saying to you in the community. If you accept the IHP recommendations on the small subset of provisions that I've referred you to here, that decision is final. There's no appeals. Those provisions will be in the district plan, or the heritage listings will be taken out of the district plan. That will happen at the time that the council notifies your decision to accept the IHP recommendations. If, on the other hand, you choose to reject an IHP recommendation, the Minister will decide on those provisions in your plan. Okay, that's the short summary.
Thank you, Brent. That's very clear. Has anyone got any questions? Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, I was interested in why we're being asked to make a decision on the heritage now instead of doing it as part of the heritage plan change.
Heritage provisions were included in both Plan Change 14 and in the heritage plan change. So they were 2 separate plan changes notified at the same time. The council's obliged to make a decision on Plan Change 14. They couldn't be kept out, heritage provisions couldn't be kept out of Plan Change 14 because they relate to constraints on the intensification that would otherwise be enabled through Plan Change 14. So they must be decided on in this process.
And so we couldn't have listed anything new in Plan Change 14. We can only delete heritage listings. Is that basically the nub of it?
Yeah, a new heritage listing would be introducing a additional constraint on what was already enabled by the district plan. And as a result of the High Court decision that I've referred to a number of times, the the law on this, or the High Court's interpretation of the law, is that the council can't introduce new constraints on what was already enabled in the operative plan.
Right. And is the heritage section one of the sections that we could defer like we've done with the others in terms of the minister's acceptance of a revised timeframe?
Not within policy 3 areas. So the only heritage items in this report are the delistings of 6 buildings within policy 3 areas.
Right. Excellent. And if we wanted to retain these, are we able to do that?
Yes, your decision is to either accept or reject the IHP recommendation. And the only reason that the staff recommendation in this report is to accept the IHP recommendation to delist is that no councillors have raised any proposals over the last 2 months to challenge that IHP recommendation.
Yeah,
thanks. Thank you very much. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Just wanted to, I guess, get out in this meeting. The IHP are not here today presenting their recommendations to us. Is that standard practice?
Yes, that's absolutely standard practice. The IHP are a quasi-judicial body who are making neutral, independent recommendations to you. The statute says that they produce a written report and they present that written report to you. And the statute also says that if you want any clarification from them, you ask questions of clarification. And that's what we've been doing, again, for the last 2 months, asking questions of clarifications. Would be, in my opinion, wholly inappropriate for the panel to appear in front of you, because what we want are well-considered clarifications of any questions that are posed, not some sort of off-the-cuff Q&A in a council meeting.
Okay. I find that a little bit interesting in the fact that I know a friend of mine who's actually spoken to councillors from Wellington, and their IHP apparently appeared before the council and were open to questioning. So it's interesting that 2 IHPs can be so different.
Yeah, this is my advice to this council. Advice to the Wellington Council may have been different.
Thank you.
Mark. And Councillor Fields, please.
Kia ora. Just regarding item 5B3, 40 Norwich Quay in Littleton. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with the heritage. I mean, obviously the building's been demolished, right? So, you know, that's done. There's nothing we can do about that. But it's also like the site of the first, you know, is a site that's got historical importance, whether it's got a heritage, you know, designation or not, because it's the site of the oldest hotel in Canterbury. So I'm just wondering, like, by doing this, I mean, are we kind of, what does that mean for kind of acknowledging that site? Because, I mean, we can't get away from the fact that the site is the site, even though the building's gone. Do you follow sort of what I mean? Is it, yeah, does it still remain a heritage site?
Yeah, thank you. I understand what you mean. I think at the end of the day, from a pure planning point of view, in terms of what's incorporated in the district plan, it's not, as a result of the recommendations from the hearings panel, wouldn't be listed in the district plan. And so the setting that is around that is a product of the building. So the building isn't there, so the setting isn't there. That doesn't mean to say that we as a council don't have the ability to recognise it in other ways in terms of the public realm around that.
No, that's good. Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Keown.
I'm just raising to the table that, yes, I completely agree with Councillor Fields re that site, but we've had raised at this council in the past the blue plaque system like they have in the UK. So for sites where a plaque goes in the footpath outside where the site is, and then it's forever known that that was the site of the first building or whatever. And a number of these, even though they might be changing today, would be sitters for blue plaque sites. And the first for me there would be Barbados Street, obviously, because that's such a historic site for the city. But we should be considering again going down the road of blue plaques because buildings leave us, but the site will always be the site, and so we should honour that.
Thank you. And Councillor Scanlon, please.
Just on the plaques, let's just make sure they're not in precious metal, because they all seem to be getting nicked at the moment.
But won't be any surprise. 5A, I'll just vote against because I have been from the very start vocal against the moving of the Citizens War Memorial, and I certainly can't support it. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay.
5A, it's heritage and settings.
Okay. Have you got another question, Councillor?
My understanding is we have time in terms of policy 3, so we could actually make the heritage decision in December.
Yes.
So we don't need to rush it today. I appreciate what you've said around people raising concerns, but I don't think when we got briefed on this, we got the specifics until quite recently. So, yeah, I mean, I feel concerned doing the heritage ones today.
We have been briefed up the tree and down.
Yeah. Well, when did we get the list of the heritage ones that were, like in those presentations that we had from staff, did we were we given the specific heritage buildings that were proposed to be delisted? Because I don't recall seeing them.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, they've been very clear on what's happening. Councillor Harrison, then I'm going to put it.
If it was by way of council, would you be able to do the heritage items in this one in December if there are any additionals?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So, Councillor Johansson said he wanted to review part 5 of this.
Yes.
Am I right, Yanni, in thinking you want to table it until December?
There's no reason we have to make the decision on the heritage today if people have got concerns. It's a policy 3 area that we've been given an extension until December, as I understand it. Yeah. So
if that was the case, then I wouldn't be comfortable with that. Reason being is 65 Riccarton Road's been waiting for a long time to get that provision going. So if staff are able to, if the council wants to push and table that item into December, I'd rather keep 65 Riccarton Road on today's agenda.
No, we're going to put the motion, because I've moved it and Sam seconded it, we're going to put the motion as everything you see on the screen, and I understand Councillor Scandrett is about 5A, is that right? It wants to be against that. So I'm going to put this motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? And I'll record that. Thank you. And 5A. Yeah. Okay, so that is passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Righty-all. We'll move on to number 5. And I dare say Councillor Cotter will be wanting to move it. Will you? Yeah, the Capital Endowment Fund for the Youth Hub Trust. Yep.
The buttons for you.
So just to explain the resolution that we've changed the Year 2 fund and reduced it from 1 million to 500,000 for today to give the Youth Hub an opportunity to find that money elsewhere, or else they have the ability to come back again next year. Now, I know in the criteria for the Capital Endowment Fund applications, it does say that staff prefer people to only apply once, but that's a policy, and we've been assured by the Chief Executive that they can come back.
It's not a policy.
It's
John,
not.
you might want to speak
It's
to
not
it
a
because
law.
we
Yeah,
did.
it's not a policy, and the Youth Hub are welcome to come back if things don't go according to plan, despite their best efforts.
Yeah, and there's a few around the table that agree with me that we would welcome the Rata Foundation to step up and provide that funding, because that would give us an equal 50-50 contribution to this incredible project. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, certainly outstanding.
Oh yes, I would like to move that.
Yep, and I'm happy to second it. I think we're pretty clear. Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Sorry, I did get notified that this was coming to the table, and I would have actually preferred the prior staff recommendation of the whole lot. I don't know how we move forward with that, but I've got some questions for staff regardless.
Okay, far away. Yeah.
I would like to foreshadow that. Kia ora, team. A couple of tough questions. Feel comfortable if you don't know. It's absolutely fine. So I was reading through the report and I saw that we're contributing about 4.4% of the whole project as a whole, and there's been no other contributions from council in regards to the youth hub. Am I correct?
Including your stage 1, 2, and 3.
Yep. Okay, and for stage 1, 2, and 3, in comparison to our contribution to RATA's, are there prior arrangements with RATA to continue to be able to fund the youth hub going into the future?
I don't think there's arrangements with RATA into the future. No, I know certainly RATA see it as an area that they're supportive of.
Yeah.
But we don't have an arrangement in place.
Okay. So, in regards to the relationship between us and RATA, what does the communication look like in regards to year 2 of this event centre?
Would you like me to speak to this? Because I was asked to contact the CE of RATA. So their indication was, as Josh said, they've made 2 contributions so far of $500,000 each, is that my understanding? And they have signalled that this project aligns strongly with their vision and aims, and they do potentially envision making a long-term commitment to this project, but they haven't considered an application for year 2 yet.
Okay, so the question lies then, are we making a long-term contribution to the youth hub?
We are responding to an application and we're recommending a contribution according to the recommendation. Okay,
So, reading through the lines, we're not going to be making long-term contributions in comparison to what RATA could potentially be doing. Therefore, if this resolution was up, we'd essentially be funding less than what RATA would in the long term. Am I right in understanding that?
So we're not aware, they could well put in an application to strengthen communities, couldn't they, and be considered there, and we wouldn't rule them out? Is that we wouldn't rule them out of funding, operational funding from there?
Yeah, I think because this is capital in nature, if the Youth Hub Trust were to apply to council for operational funds in future years, certainly we'd consider that in the context of this, of course, but but it also almost certainly wouldn't be at the quantum of this because our operational strengthening communities just doesn't have the.
We're not hanging them out to dry, so to speak. We're giving them the opportunity to come back if they can't raise the second 500 grand next year.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So all is not lost.
So then the question remains is, what happens to the capital project if there's no surety until RATA comes to the party next year?
The group will need to fundraise the remainder to complete the project. I think they've discussed with us there's potentially some options about naming rights. We know they have a good reputation in the community, and so perhaps more so than other groups they have the ability to do so successfully. But certainly it is putting it back somewhat on the organisation if RATA, whatever they decide to do, to find that.
So there's a risk in this in regards to the delivery of the capital project potentially being pushed out if RATA either one don't come to the party, or two we only fund the 1.5 mil.
I don't think there's no risk because we've left the door open. If they get in strife, they can come back and see us.
The only thing that the Youth Hub did mention when we notified them of this recommendation is that it could delay timeframes if they're needing to seek those remaining funds elsewhere.
Yeah. Did they elaborate as to how long it might be pushed out?
They didn't have the exact. They got this recommendation recently, so they'd have to figure out the logistics of that.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor Henstock.
Thank you for the presentation. When I visited the site last week, I understood that there's an issue about occupation of the mezzanine floor because of the fire regulations. I'm keen to understand, please, whether this changed resolution here will impact their ability to occupy that floor and get their tenancy and occupation rate up.
So once the event centre is constructed, it will open up about 50 more square metres of that mezzanine level, which will be for organisation hot desking and for part of the staff room up there. So again, until the construction can go ahead and be completed, that space can't be occupied.
Councillor Henstock, for clarity, the recommendation as it stands reduces the contribution in year 2 by $500,000. That's year 2, but also provides the safety net that the Mayor's explained. If the project can't find alternative funding anywhere else, despite their best efforts, they're a good organisation and they've got the capacity to do this. We are open and we will bring a application back for council consideration.
So can I just clarify then that the occupancy of that mezzanine floor can't occur until this piece of the puzzle is complete, the construction?
Correct.
Councillor Harrison, question?
Yeah. Referring to the safety net, I see nothing within the resolution that says that they are safe. Is there possibilities to be able to provide reasonable assurance based on if RATA do or do not? Right? I'm talking about a backstop.
Okay.
Apologies for complicating it, but it's an extremely
You're doing a
important
lovely job.
You happy to amend that if we were to add as no?
Do you want to take a couple of minutes? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just
We'll take
something up and then we'll have
we'll
to
take
ask them
5
whether-
minutes and then we'll get whatever we're talking about. Well, I know what we're talking.
the original resolution or original staff recommendation of 970 in year 24-25 and 1,030,000 in year 25-26. Is that what the mover and seconder are happy with?
Okay. Yeah. So we'll do debate now, will we? There's not really any questions to ask. Okay. Sorry, Victoria's got a question.
Can I just get some clarity? Well, I'm just trying to understand why we've gone back in terms of what are the implications for the construction project if we stayed with the Pauline's resolution. Can I just get clarity on that for the
It was
public?
the advice the officer gave and was confirmed by the project manager for the youth hub, is that they would not be able to start the project and would not be able to sign the contract unless they had sufficient funds.
Okay, so we'll do debate. Sorry, Anna, you got a question?
Just a question, like, is it possible to consider that we underwrite? So if RATA's going to contribute, then why would we put the RATA funding at,
It's all getting a bit hard. We'll just give them the dough. We tried, we failed. Let's get on with it.
And why was sorry, I just missed why the recommendation was different to what we've got in our paper.
So the recommendation in the paper is that first one that was in the paper.
Sorry, well.
And then it was.
Sorry, the one on the screen.
Was
it's
not
a new one?
Was not the one in the report. So the one in the report is the one that's highlighted and now.
So sorry, why was there a new recommendation pot different to what we already had on our agenda?
I think it was put with the try to get the incentive to actually for the group to find alternative funding in that year 2, but and that at that point that was put in. There wasn't the understanding that it would delay the project. Okay. Now we've got the understanding that it would delay the project. The move and seconder moving.
Yeah, we're happy with that. So I'll go into debate. Who wants to debate it? Pauline?
Yeah, look, this I went through last week as well. This is an absolutely outstanding project. I was really blown away with it, completely blown away. The level of thought and the design, the practicality, the form following the function of it so well. It's warm, it's light, it's the location's fantastic, and I really admire the vision that the Bagshaws have got for this, and I can't wait to see it going. So finding out today that not funding the full $2 million from council for this over 2 years was, changed my view to go back to the original motion because we don't want to see it delayed. So the board there is probably being quite prudent, saying they don't want to start until they know they've got the full $2 million. But it is a big call on our capital endowment fund, which is not a massive fund for distributing for exactly these types of things that are going to benefit our community and our city. And so it would have been nice to have given them the opportunity to find the other 500 for year 2. But here we are today, we're funding them $2 million, and I'm hoping that the RATA Foundation will also look kindly on us for digging deep, and that they will continue to do so as well, because this is a perfect project for us, our 2 organisations to partner, and that's what I'd like to see, a little bit more of us partnering together. And projects like this, if they could come to us earlier and say, look, we've got a project here, we'll design, build, operate, let's form a partnership with some funders and going forward and figure out how we'll do this funding together, rather than just coming, this just came to us, $2 million, So we've had to dig deep into it, and, it's a lot of money. Indeed, the whole project is a lot of money. I think it's in around the 40s, but it's going to be very, very good for our city. All right, so I'll be supporting this today. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harrison-Hunt.
If I ever wanted to find a team to be able to fundraise millions of dollars for me, I'd definitely pick in the Youth Hub Trust. The work that they do in this space is absolutely phenomenal. The amount of donations that they've had, the amount of funders that have been really, really generous in ensuring stage 1 pushes through has been phenomenal. You can't help but get emotional walking through the Youth Hub. If you've seen what I've seen in the youth space for the last 10 years, it's quite confronting. Seeing those who are on the bottom of the bottom in terms of poverty levels those who don't have shoes, those who don't have a full belly going into school in the morning. I worked with them on a daily basis. A lot of them actually had raro for breakfast or sometimes dry wheat bix. And those are things that make me extremely passionate to be able to be in this position. And the reason why I ran for council is so that I can try and change things in a bigger scale than the way that I was doing it at the time. Because when I was working with young people, I was working 5 hours for an event with them, but the other 122 hours, they were away from me. They had empty stomachs. They had nothing to do. They were bored. And in our Christchurch Youth Action Plan, there are multiple things that our young people required. And we haven't hit all of them yet, but there's quite a lot more to do. And I'll be talking about that in our portfolio presentation soon. But one of the most popular things in the city for young people is they said we need a space to be ourselves and to be able to have a space to feel safe and feel like we can be open and trusting to someone who is around us. I believe the Youth Hub does this, and I'm really, really looking forward to supporting them in the future and now. So thank you, everyone, for actually asking those questions, very good questions, and I want to thank the mover and seconder for pushing for this resolution. Kia ora.
Councillor Barber.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Phil. I'm really happy to support this too. I was probably one of the few councillors who actually didn't go to visit the Youth Hub because I've been going to the Youth Health Centre and its various iterations for over 30 years in my professional capacity, working for various companies over the years. I've always been a huge supporter of the Bagshaws and what they do. I think they're marvellous people who care deeply about the youth of this city. I remember back in the day when there was just one GP and one nurse and one admin staff, and they were doing wonderful things. It was a drop-in centre where anybody could come, not be judged, be treated well, be given good health advice and life advice. Very, very supportive of young people. And we always need in our society people who step up like the Bagshaws and look at our young people and go, okay, well, what can I do to help? So I'm just so incredibly supportive of anything that they do for the youth of our city, particularly those who are really struggling in their lives. So very happy to support it, and I get emotional too when I see the work that they do and how they change lives. So very happy to support them.
Councillor Keown.
It's pretty much all been said, but around the funding thing, if there's anyone that ever takes on truly insurmountable projects that just are ridiculous in any realm of being normal, 2 words, the Bagshaws. Do a private hospital, now the youth thing. It's just unreal. Yeah, it's 2 words. Da. Yeah, I count da. It's a word in Scrabble. Right, cool, thank you.
Councillor MacDonald.
I don't look. I'll support this. I mean, I think it's just worth pointing out it's capital endowment fund, so it was set up for purposes in this respect in terms of how we minimise the rate increases. But I do want to sort of publicly express my frustration at the Rata Foundation. I think they have lost their way well and truly. And when you take a situation like this, where if you think of the 2 big funders in Christchurch, we're contributing $1 million more than the Rata Foundation, something has gone horribly wrong. I cannot understand for the life of me why they do not put more money into projects like this, where you can see from people with credible backgrounds, they can actually deliver good outcomes for the city. And the fact that the ratepayer, albeit through capital endowment, is expected to put in twice as much as the Rata Foundation is quite frankly unacceptable. So I want to take the opportunity to express my frustration, and they have lost their way if we're in situations like this.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Johansson.
Sorry. I'm really incredibly supportive of this. I've had the good fortune of being involved in some form or another in city council, local government in the city since 1995. And in that time, I was actually on the Youth Strategy Working Party that helped council develop a youth policy. And I know we no longer have a youth policy. I know that we've got rid of that policy. But if we did have it, what it did say was that council's role is to support and advocate on behalf of and with young people, to provide and resource and support services for young people in partnership with other agencies where appropriate, and to be a coordinator with the community of activities which provide for young people. In the time that I've been involved as a member of the Youth Council, the Youth Strategy Working Party, a community board member, and now a city councillor, there has been several common themes that young people have repeatedly expressed to the city about what their needs are. The first is that they want access to youth housing, right? This hub does that. The second is that they want alcohol-free venues that they can go in the central city where they can represent and have young people have arts, access to entertainment that doesn't have things like a cost as being a barrier. And the third is access to health facilities as well, right? So when you look at all those things together, over so many decades as a city where the common themes have emerged, we finally have a project that is doing it. So I think it's totally incumbent upon us to provide the funding support through the endowment fund. This is exactly the type of fund that should be supporting this sort of activity. We have put it into many other projects for the benefit of others, but I think today is about supporting the young people in our city, the requests that they've made, and the organisations that work with them so that we can get better outcomes for all. So I'm very, very strongly supportive of this. I would hate to see it be delayed even further, and I think that was a risk with the alternative funding recommendation. I do think we need to get a better partnership with RATA around funding community facilities, and I hope today that RATA doesn't take the sign that because we're putting in the money that they suddenly don't have a responsibility to fund these types of programs, and I hope we can continue that conversation with them. But just to thank staff and thank the Youth Hub for the amazing work that they've done on this facility, to thank the other funders, but I think this is an incredibly important thing for our city, and I look forward to it getting off the ground.
Councillor Scandrett, please.
Yeah, thank you. If you look at the Capital Endowment Fund, this is exactly what it's here for. It says the Capital Endowment Fund is available for not-for-profit organisations who require support for capital projects. They must demonstrate a significant benefit for the city and its residents. There is no question that this is the right fund for it. But however, I agree with Councillor MacDonald. I think RATA have really lost their way because those organisations which RATA are no longer funding have come here. There's nowhere else to go for them. And if you look at RATA, the Capital Endowment Fund is $75 million with around about a 6% return. RATA's is 10 times the size for twice the return. So there has to be better discussion. And my concern has always been about the discussion with RATA about joining hands for the best outcome that we can get. Because it's not just the build. We have to support these organisations for how many years they run. You can't just build something and then kind of expect something else to fund it because it just doesn't work. I can't vote against this because it is such a good project, but I am really struggling with the process, and $75 million of ratepayers' money, we are in a cost of living crisis, which we've all acknowledged, and yes, many of the people that come for us for funding can afford a cup of tea with a bit of milk, but some of them will be drinking raro for breakfast, and some of them will be having dry Weet-Bix. Everybody comes to the council. We must be ready for that. And we need our partners like RATA to have better communication with us and to stand with us rather than kind of playing games. I just don't think it's the right outcome for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Very happy to support this today. Having visited this on its construction phase a couple of times, it's an amazing facility. Also echo the frustrations. You know, we recently had a catch up around the board table with RATA to sort of swap notes, but then to be put in this situation so soon after that, I find that really frustrating, and I really hope that RATA can pick up from today that, look, we need to partner with you on this, these sorts of projects and these sorts of things for our city. It's all very well to say that it strongly aligns to what your values are, but it's another thing to actually put your hand in your pocket and help us out, help the city out with what's needed. To see this development of the youth hub for the young people of Christchurch is phenomenal, and I really encourage the people of Christchurch that, you know, when the open days come up and they open the facility, go and have a look, see just how incredible it is, and see the vision. This is absolutely amazing, and I'm really pleased to be able to support this today. But please, RATA, listen and come to the table and help us out, help the city out.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan.
I think we're all in violent agreement that this is a wonderful project and that the Capital Endowment Fund is the right fund to be funding it. I guess I have a contrary opinion to all the ones that have been expressed thus far, in that I don't have a problem with the fact that RATA are leaving some of the funding spaces that we used to jointly contribute, because ultimately what they are funding is social good. And I think that if that leaves us with an additional burden to fund those things that we used to do jointly, ultimately the social good that is being funded by them leaving those spaces is greater. So I'm totally relaxed and comfortable with the direction that RATA are going.
Councillor Templeton?
Kia ora. I'd like to tautaku Councillor McClelland's kōrero there. It's disappointing to hear people begging such a valuable organisation for our city. Like Councillor McClelland says, RATA do fund social good. It's not like they have stopped funding some things that we used to co-fund and have started spending that money on bags and booze, right? Bags and booze. It's like they are doing social good in our community and picking up areas that we're not funding. And when I hear people talking about partnering, what it sounds like is, please fund what we tell you to fund. And I don't think that's a way to partner. So really happy to support the Youth Hub. It's a fantastic space. We know that when our youth are well supported, when their mental health is good, that it's good for all of us. We need to look after our young people. They're going through much more than we ever had to. And they need a space, and this project is the one for them. Thank you.
Okay. Point of order. I never mentioned holidays, booze or fags, and never mentioned in partnership, as in I do understand the true meaning of partnership. I never mentioned about do what we say. I never mentioned that.
Okay.
Well, now it sounds like I do because you've said it.
My turn. And I'm the last one. My family, everyone, we've always been in massive support of the Bagshores, and they need every bit of credit they can get. But we were, as council, we were always going to fund this. And what we did, Pauline and I, well, when this was changed, it was to try and open the door to encourage another funder to just help us out next year. Because the Capital Endowment Fund is, believe it or not, is not a bottomless pit of money that we can just keep hauling money out ad infinitum. So we've done this, but then of course we did what we thought was right, and then it turned out that RATA, quite rightly the board, Youth Hub, quite rightly the board, said we can't commit to build it unless we have all the funds. So that is the thing that's changed it, but we were always going to fund it. So I'm more than happy to support this, as we always would, because it's the right thing to do. So I will put this motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you very much. That's carried. Right. We have now item number 6, Cashel Clarkson temporary improvements. Please. Who's happy to move this? Jake, it's in your area. Yeah. Councillor McClelland is happy to move it, and Councillor Coker is happy to. I always get Cotter and Coker. Is happy to second it. Right. We've read it. It's as plain as the nose on your face. Do we want to? I'm going to. Yeah, Councillor Templeton, question. Okay, so I'll put this and we'll see how we go. So all those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. That's carried. Good work. Great presentation. Okay, so now we're up to number 7. Hagley Park Botanic Gardens parking meters. Yeah. You got that, Sam? Cool. Okay. There's a lot of writing there. which we've read from. Okay. Do we want to risk just putting this? No, we don't? Okay, I didn't think we did. Okay, far away, gentlemen.
Good morning, I'm Guy Williams, Project Manager for Metro Parks. I've got Wolfgang Bopp here, Director of the Botanic Gardens, and Andrew Hensley, Traffic Engineer. The purpose of this report was to seek approval to legally enforce the resolution decision to charge for parking at Hagley Park that was decided in the long-term plan.
And just to draw your attention to two minor amendments since the agenda was published but has since been clarified. Resolution 24 for the P5 loading zone, the wording is to say this restriction is to apply at all times. And Resolution 25 to insert the word markings after signage. Markings are required for some of the parking restrictions to be legal and formal.
Great. Yeah, we take this as read, and that's all.
Okay. Right, away we go. Councillor MacDonald.
Hey, thank you for this report. It's sort of good and bad in some respects in that we've kind of already made the in principle decision during the LTP. So can you just confirm for me this is just the technicality, this is the ability to actually legally implement what council decided during the LTP?
Yes, that's correct. The advice we had was to legally enforce the meters. We had to bring this to council, so that's all we're doing here.
Yeah. So this is just basically meeting the requirements under the Local Government Act. It's effectively just following on from what we agreed in the LTP.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, great, thank
And
you.
it formally resolves all the other spaces within those parking areas as well.
Yeah, no, that's good for everyone to.
Thank you.
Yep,
Good,
thank you.
good answer. Councillor Harrison Hunt, please.
I know we've already passed it through. I just have a couple of questions. Referring to 4.6.3, it talked about public dissatisfaction with Horticultural Car Park, Cricket Oval, Riccarton Ave and Armagh Street. Could you talk to us a bit more about that, just so I'm clear? It says in the option disadvantages by putting this in place.
That's just around the public's general. There could be opposition to paid parking in Hagley Park. Yep.
Was it quite significant? And when we were doing the consultation, was it quite significant in terms of dissatisfaction?
I can jump in here. There was over 1,000 submissions through the LTP, and it was just over 50-50 in terms of satisfaction to dissatisfaction,
Okay.
and some that didn't know, but yeah, it wasn't overwhelmingly against.
Okay, great. There was one more bit that I read yesterday. It actually might have been with Councillor Johansson's question, was staff were observing that there was long-term parkers, but we didn't have any proper data on it. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's really hard to get really accurate survey data from what you see, but you know, people and staff have worked and observed over long periods of time. It's really clear to see that people are parking there and not recreating in the park. If you went down there at 9 o'clock, you'd see that firsthand, and it's, you know, that's reflected through some of the comments through the community groups as well, where they sometimes can't find parks and they know that there's other issues at play there.
Great, thanks, Rupert. That was just for public knowledge. I appreciate that. Cheers.
Councillor Kewen, please.
Just on number 23, and I could just be reading it wrong, but that the stopping of vehicles be prohibited at any time within the Hagley Park Horticultural Car Park. So hang on, does that mean that it's what, sorry? Yeah, but does that mean that you can't park in the car park? What that reads? It's not that.
No, that's a standard resolution for no stopping restrictions, where we're saying no stopping lines are marked or signposted.
Right, just those.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
because just the way it reads like you can't park in the car park at any
No.
time. Okay,
Councillor
that's all right.
Johansson, please.
Thank you. I mean, first off, just want to say thank you for the report. It's really good to get the level of detail. This level of detail wasn't what was provided in the consultation document, so I do think people may not have been aware of what was being proposed. In the report, you talk about communicating to some of the other stakeholder groups around like the sports clubs and other Hagley Park users. Have they been made aware of this report? And if so, what views have they expressed?
So just clarifying, this is just enacting the resolution and the consultation that was
Not
undertaken
going
in
back
the
to
LTP, isn't it?
litigate or open up stuff. This all is just enacting what we voted on in the long-term plan. Okay?
Sorry, so, well, can I just check then, in terms of the parking, the paid parking, when we have events like we've just had Illuminate, for example, is that captured in here, or is that a different, is there a different pricing structure for people to kind of hire out the parks for the cricket or the other major events that we have? Can you just help me understand that relationship between the consequence of this and that?
Yeah. So in the report, we state for any events that will be using that parking space, they will have to apply as they currently do. And then in order to get that right to use that park, that'll be assessed by the council as it currently is. So there'll be no set change because of these resolutions.
Great answer. Thank you very much.
Does that mean that we forego revenue if we allow other people to access that space and block it off?
That would depend on what decisions made, what hours they want to use that.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Yannick. That's enough. Councillor Templeton.
Thanks. A couple of questions. Firstly, I've had some concern from some older residents who were concerned that the meters might be cashless, that they might not be able to use coins and those kind of things in the meters. So could you talk us through the decision to make them cashless?
Yeah, so we talked to the enforcement team and they advised us not to use cash in the meters. That's in line with what they're doing on the streets, and also Hagley Park, obviously being dark and not lit at night, is at risk of vandalism and theft. So we were strongly encouraged not to put cash in the meters.
Okay, and the proposal to do it from 8 till 5, which was in the original proposal in the long-term plan, matches the current parking restriction times for the 3-hour parking, but it's different to the on-street parking times for paid of 9 till 6. And I'm just wondering why we didn't do 9 to 6 to keep it consistent with all council paid parking. Because it wouldn't make any difference to revenue. Yeah.
It was more for the users of Hagley Park. So a lot of people recreate there after work. So it made parking available for people that are using it as a recreation space or working in sports clubs.
But all of the people who will be using it during the day will be doing it for recreation now, because they won't be doing the long-term parking because it'll be paid. So why would we?
Could I just clarify? I think it's hard to ask this team these questions because they're just enacting a decision that was made by the council. So they weren't making the choice or making a judgment call, they were just enacting a decision.
They've had the questions before though. I've had some stuff answered. Yeah. So they're aware of the questions.
All right.
Beforehand. Okay, I'm just going to letting people know that I'm proposing to put an amendment up to make the weekend ones 10 till 4 instead of 8 till 5.
Can we do that?
Okay.
We've got one more question from Councillor Keown.
Yeah, and it's one Yanni's raised before, but so sorry about that. The pricing where it says the first hour's $2 and so on and so forth, but the machines can't pay $2 with cash. The machine then charges you another 50 cents, so it's not. When we say something's $2, it's not. It's actually 20% more. It's $2.50.
That's all included now.
So that's included now.
We passed that about a year ago.
Oh, so okay. Oh, great. Shows how often I always park here and just walk.
Thank you.
Cheap.
Councillor Johansson, you had another question?
Yeah, thanks. And I really appreciate getting the data with the infringements. In the press, it was reported that we hadn't been ticketing people for overstaying. It said not one infringement notice was issued for vehicles parked for more than 3 hours in March, April or May this year, and that we were only doing infringement notices for parked vehicles without a warrant of fitness or registration. Are you able just to clarify with the figures that we've been provided as to how many of those were for overstaying the time and why there's a difference in the information in the report?
These guys aren't the enforcement.
I don't have a more detailed breakdown of that data. That was just what I got sent from enforcement
Yes,
yesterday.
and you guys aren't the enforcement chaps, are you? You're just the bringer of the news. Right. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Fields.
Cool. Thank you. So, I mean, I've always been really supportive of this. I voted for it. I'm supportive of it then. I'm supportive of it now. I guess the thing that I'm worrying about is that the idea of doing it is to increase the parks available for people using the park rather than people squatting while they're sort of, going to work. But what if it doesn't achieve that, and how do we monitor that? Like, I mean, people might just be very happy just to go and squat all day and we get the revenue, great, but it still means that there aren't parks available for people using the park. So are we sort of doing some monitoring there?
I don't have an answer for you today on that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And will there be an answer for it at all? Is that something that we can find out? Are we doing some monitoring?
I could probably. We won't know until we try it.
But we'd still need to monitor, with respect, Your Worship, we would need to monitor it.
I can probably jump in there. At Hagley Park, there's strict rules around additional car parking anywhere around the park. There's still a number of free parks around the boundary of Hagley Park, and if we're still not getting the desired result from letting people recreate and find a park, at least we will be getting some revenue. So it's just the number one deterrent to start off with, and then we can assess things as we go. But we're not going to know until we hit the road.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So do we want to have? Because we'll stop now and we'll do the debate.
Yep.
I think.
Yes, yeah, and we might have a 5-minute break regarding the amendment.
Okay, so we'll have 5 minutes break to talk about the amendment, and then we'll come back and do debate. Is that right? If anyone wants to. Right, thank you all. Right. Jake. Thank you, everyone. Sorry, we lashed out and had morning tea at the same time, so that's why we've been a wee bit longer. Mary's just got a bit of housekeeping to do.
Great. Okay, so we're just clarifying the proposed amendment by Councillor Templeton because it's a bit of a grey area about whether this is revoking a previous decision and needed to go through the standing orders 5-day notice period. But because it's a grey area, we're suggesting, and the chair has agreed, that the motion does go ahead, but it or amendment, sorry, could go ahead and be put to the vote. But it would need to note that it actually is changing the resolution, altering the resolution made in the LTP, and it is actually has an implication on revenue, which Rupert is estimated to be about 230k a year, but we won't put that in the resolution. But it can go ahead and be voted on.
Okay.
Can someone fill me in
2 hours.
on the amendment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
Could someone just quickly explain what the amendment is? Just because I've
So
been...
the amendments are up there on its amending Saturday to Sunday to the hours of 10 to 4 instead of 8 to 5. And then those, and it's in 3 places that this is made, 4 places. And then the other bit in yellow is just the noting that it's changing. So
it was going to be the same all week long, but the amendment is to shut down Saturday and Sunday to 10 to 4 instead of, so that's the amendment. Okay. Hello.
Does that mean, I was just wondering how that was calculated, like how much revenue is over that 3 hours? Is it about $800 or something? What's the...
230k.
230 grand.
So Rupert, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, there's 620 parks, and you're taking 3 hours away every day over the 2 weekends, over 52 weekends, and calculated 80% of that cost, so 80% capacity. So it's roughly around 230,000.
Thank you.
We have 80% capacity at those hours of the day, though.
That we've calculated the revenue on 80% capacity over the whole entire year, so allowing a bit of margin, so they're not
got
full.
a bit up and down contingency.
Yep.
Okay, so Sarah's got a seconder. Yeah. So you got that, Tyler? Okay, so how do we do this? Sarah talks to it and then we put it, or how do we do it?
Further questions?
Councillor Henson's got a question.
Thanks. Cheers. So I just want to be clear. We have no information at the moment about what the occupancy is for the different times of the days.
We have no hard data,
okay,
but it's very clear to see that the capacity of the car park is full the majority of the time.
Right, and do we have any information on the weekend, specifically with the amendment going to 10?
Again, anecdotally, the car parks are full throughout weekdays and weekends. I was there on Sunday, and it was very full. So we can only go by what we've been seeing.
And just in terms of the process, like given that this will be different to what we consulted on, are there people that may be affected by the change that should actually be notified that we're making a decision, and should they have an ability to put their views forward?
So just to be clear, this we didn't consult on the hours at the weekend during the LTP. So it was a decision in the LTP, but it wasn't what was consulted on.
Right. Okay. So what was consulted on? And just the
weekdays.
weekdays.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, do we need to consult? Like, why would we not have to consult if this has an impact on people?
Because you consulted on the weekdays, and based on the feedback you got, you decided to add the weekends.
We actually went out of our way and made a decision. Okay.
No, but yeah. Okay.
Right, Councillor McDonald.
It was just probably one for you, Sarah. Just to understand, it's not a it's just 10 till 4. So I get there's obviously park run on the mornings, which makes sense. But in the afternoon, how come we didn't line up at 5?
I was going to explain it in debate, but it was generally I'm not able to, the whole point of the charging was the parking turnover during the week and the people who were parking there all day, which is why I didn't vote for the weekend stuff originally. I can't move a motion to revoke it, because I'd need notice and stuff to do that. So I was just hoping to shorten the hours over the weekend, and it might be that, you know, someone's there, you know, turns up at 3, they don't have to pay for an hour instead of, yeah.
Oh, it was more
So with
just
their families
because
and
you had
stuff.
that question earlier on about the consistency through the week till 6 p.m. I just wondered.
Well, if I
we're
was
gonna have-
changing the morning anyway, it didn't.
You're now going to have 3 different end dates, end times during.
But it's all on the signage, and people don't see
Yeah,
it.
no, I was
The
just trying to
advice I
understand
got
it,
from
giving you a
staff
question.
originally is they didn't see a problem with the timing changes between on street and stuff like that.
So it's more of a kind of not a feel, but you know what I mean. Like you think that'd be the better place to go 10 till 4 as opposed to 10 till 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, Councillor Templeton can speak to her amendment.
Kia ora koutou. So the whole purpose of the original proposal to start charging in the heavily used car parks at Hagley Park was to discourage those who park there all day for work, and that is an issue. I've been through the Botanic Gardens and into the Almar Street car park at sort of 7:38 in the morning, and it can be 3/4 full, and that's clearly not with people who are in the gardens or in the park, and so that is a real issue. It is not the same on the weekends, and that's why the original staff proposal for the long-term plan was only to do it on those weekdays. And so, as I've just said, I'm not able to put up a resolution at this stage to not do the weekends, and the way the resolutions are worded, I'm not able to vote separately against the weekends. So I've put up this resolution in order to try and facilitate a better outcome. I am concerned that the discussion has become about revenue, and some of the publicity has been about, you know, it will create $2.1 million of revenue for the council, when that wasn't the original purpose. Yes, that revenue will be helpful, but that shouldn't be the purpose here. And I think that, especially on the weekends, our gardens should be accessible to everyone. And, you know, there are those who do need to use a car, and I don't think that we should be discounting that for those with small children and those kind of things, or making them park out on the street where it's a very long walk to get their kids into there. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Kewen.
Yeah, I also agree that parking should not be about the revenue, and so I'd like to see us make all on-street parking in the city $1 an hour going forward.
Thanks for that. Yeah, Councillor Cotter.
Just on the revenue thing, it's not really about revenue. The LTP decision wasn't about revenue, but the revenue is now a result of the LTP decision. So we have built that into the budget, and also some of that revenue will be used to actually install these things and for compliance costs. So any adjustment to that revenue is going to have an impact. So it's not. The original decision was not about revenue raising, it was about equity for use of the car parks and the gardens. So today, I assume we're just having one debate.
Yep.
I won't be supporting the amendment. I think there's too many, as I think Councillor MacDonald alluded to, there's too many, there'll be 3 different timings around the city now, so I think it's really best to keep it sort of conformity the same. So I prefer the substantive.
Right, yep.
Yeah, cool. Happy to second. Reason being, again, it wasn't about revenue. And as a frequent user of the Botanical Gardens on a Saturday and Sunday, I don't see many shift workers, but I see a lot of young families, particularly those from all cultures, attend the Botanical Gardens and the playground. During the summer, it's absolutely bonkers, but there is at least a car park ready for me whenever I'm there. It will be at 80% capacity for sure. But just referring to the Botanical Gardens themselves, I very rarely see what I believe to be shift workers. This is just my own experience, and there are also others, constituents who have been calling me about this, particularly focusing on the weekends. I'm in full support of Sarah's motion, and Councillor Cotter was elaborating to the times on the weekends, and in this regard, I'm happy to support Sarah's motion. But Monday to Friday looks pretty legit. And the consistency part, let's address that quickly. People say it's difficult to actually look up and read a sign and see that it's between 8 to 10 on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If that's really difficult for our ratepayer, then it's going to be difficult for many others at this table. It's not hard doing that. Kia ora.
Councillor Fields.
I sort of alluded to this in my question earlier. I just sort of sailed into debate while I was questioning, but I support absolutely charging for parking in the gardens now and forever. And I think it's a really positive step. I would, however, like to encourage us to think of ways that we can encourage people into the central city and getting around the central city through the use of public transport or cycle ways or whatever, because I think that would be a really positive step. I've always been a big fan of park and rides. I've seen those used successfully overseas. You know, even encouraging people to use the tram to get to the gardens and that sort of thing. But, you know, that's sort of blue sky thinking on some level. I'm so really supportive of the substantive, but I'm on the fence over the amendment. Part of me says that I'd prefer to just keep things simple. Part of me says that if you change the times, you're just going to, you know, you could end up having a traffic jam at like 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, which is probably not the desire. Who knows? It's just the law of unintended consequences when you're trying to do things. Speaking of the unintended consequences, it's never been about revenue for me with this. It's always just been about equitable access to the park. And I would be disappointed if we don't have the mechanisms and the ability to monitor that we're not achieving the effect that we've set out to do, and we're not getting the outcome that we've set out to do. So great, we're installing parking in the park, but it's not about revenue. It's really about just being able to free up kind of space for people who really do need to use the park during the day, rather than office workers. So we wait and see. Obviously, we need data to know whether that's working or not. But yeah, I'd really like to make sure that we're monitoring that properly. Thank you.
Yeah, right. And so we'll always, Councillor Johansson, we'll always be able to, once we've got data, we can play and massage and make things better. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. I won't be supporting this. I still remember when this was first raised with us, and it was about revenue raising. It was presented in the cost saving slides that were up in the Mayor's Lounge. We went through and put dots on each of the options. So to me, this has always been about raising revenue, not actually about the other things that have been raised. And I think one of the problems is with this whole process is that our consultation document was not clear about specifically where it would apply to. It was very, very generic. And I think a lot of people just have no idea that it was being proposed for as many areas as was proposed. If you look at the report we've got today, actually it is an excellent report because it has clear data around where the parks are that we're proposing to put the meters. But what it doesn't have is any occupancy data to support the fact that, or the issue that there's a problem. And I would much rather prefer that we collect the data to make good decisions so that we knew what the occupancy issues were from what was happening. In fact, in the press, a local resident who asked council to get the information was told that we hadn't had any infringement notices issued for vehicles parked for more than 3 hours in March, April or May this year. It said the infringement notices were only issued to parked vehicles without a current warrant of fitness or registration. So if we think there was a problem with people overstaying and parking here all day, then why haven't we been enforcing it? Why are we only jumping to a revenue raising solution ahead of actually looking at the other things that we can do now that would make it more accessible for people? So I think there needs to be much more work done on this. The other point that I'd like to raise is that it's really inconsistent. If you look at the Margaret Mahi playground, you can see clearly that construction vehicles are parking there all day. And I kind of wonder, where does this stop, right? If we do the parking charges here, outside our gardens and outside our sports fields, where does it stop? Does it mean we're going to start charging at children's playgrounds in the central city as well? Does it mean that we're going to start charging at Napunawai, which has a massive problem with the amount of car parks that's required and people parking there? Does it mean that we're going to start putting in parking charges in Akaroa as well when people are going there and overcrowding it? So I just don't think the logic behind this has been really thought through sufficiently to jump to the conclusion that the best way to solve this problem is by raising revenue. Because the other thing is that if it's successful, then ultimately, what does that mean in terms of reducing the number of people that are coming in to use the car park? I'd much rather have people using this car park as much as possible than reducing people's access to the gardens and the Hagley Park and the sports fields.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah,
And then I'll put it.
I won't support the amendment, and I do that because we've been through this with an LTP, and if you think about the purpose of this report, it's the approval of the parking meters. So we've literally been through all of this, and the thing that worries me, and I've been contacted by people from Parkrun and that as well, so I know there are people that have a strong interest in changing that time. I don't do it, but I know there are people that are. The thing with it though is the inconsistency. So we're going to have 6 p.m. somewhere around the city, 5 p.m. and then 4 p.m. I mean, if we're trying to be a council that is easily accessible and understood for everyone, can we not have some consistency across what we do? So I won't support that. But again, to me, I've kind of viewed this whole paper as a process paper that actually just should have been put because it's a requirement under the legislation. We'd already agreed on it during the LTP. So, if we talk about how we rebuild trust and confidence in council, effectively this paper relitigates an issue that was decided on during the LTP. And look, I'm up for that. If we're going to do that with everything, I'm more than happy to relitigate parts of the LTP, but it's not overly helpful in a united council delivering for the city.
Correct. Okay, right. I will put the amendment, which is in yellow. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? No. I think that was lost. Okay. Now, so that just changes. Now we take out Saturday and Sunday and make it 8 till 5. Is that right? Is that what happens?
The recommendations.
Uh-huh.
So we can just put them.
Okay. So I think we debated the living daylights out of this. So I'll put this. All those in favour of what we have now in front of us on the screen? Against?
No. Just have my vote recorded. Thanks.
Thank you. That's good. Right. So that's carried. Thank you very much. Events funding. Nigel, you're up. And while you're getting yourself settled down there, has everyone seen the second page of the press this morning to see how Brighton is going ahead and how it's being rejuvenated and it's actually done? It's good. Read it. It's on page 2, so it's very good reading. Okay, Nigel.
Just like to acknowledge Celeste for her good work on New Brighton.
No, it's in the paper. Read it. Thank you, Nigel.
Must be true. Morning. So the purpose of this report is to provide staff advice on how the additional funding that was allocated through the events through the 24-34 long-term plan will be split between the partner agencies, noting that this advice includes input from both from relevant partner agencies and takes into account the additional funding available for major events as a result of the cancellation of SailGP. I'll highlight a few key things and then probably just take the paper as read and go from there. Mm-hmm. So what we're proposing under 3.7 is the additional event funding of 1.2 million in 24-25 is allocated as follows, which is $400,000 to Venues Otatahi for events that happen in Venue Otatahi managed venues, $400,000 to Christchurch NZ for the Screen Canterbury grant of $100,000 in 24-25, with the balance to be used for major events or business subvention, and $400,000 to be held by the Christchurch City Council for the City Identity event and the Arts and Culture Fund. The reason we've recommended 24-25 in terms with the opening of Patakuri and One New Zealand Stadium at Tikaha, I think it's timely to do a quick review of the roles that Christchurch NZ, Venues Otatahi and the Christchurch City Council play in that event ecosystem. And once that work's completed, we'll provide in terms of staff advice on how it should be split in the following years in the LTP.
Done? All good? Yep, I'm happy to move this. Sam's happy to second it. You've got a question? No. Oh, you were going to second. Okay. Councillor Johansson has a question.
Yeah, I guess I was interested in what happened with SailGP, for example, where, we allocate an event's cost, but then there's also additional. So, we were told that, and this is public information, there's an incentive fee of $400,000, and then there was 300,000 in-kind contribution. And I'm just wondering, where does the in-kind contribution come from? Does it come specifically from the events funding that we're tagging today, or is that through other funding realms?
Generally, if it's value in kind, then there's no charge for it. It might be marketing or stuff that's not charged for, so it's not accounted for in any of the financial grants that are made. It's in kind. Does that make sense?
Not really. So
generally, when you talk about value in kind, it's things that you doing to help them out without paying for it, without a charge for it. So that value in kind is not accounted through how you'd spend on this. It's stuff that you've done to help the event out. That's value in kind. It's stuff you've done that doesn't have a cost associated to it.
So, but how do we budget for events if we make significant value? I mean, value in kind contributions. I mean, 300,000 is almost as much as the incentive fee.
So I guess an example, if the events team at council provides support to an event that's been delivered in the city, in terms of it's our staff time, in terms of we don't charge them for that necessarily, but in terms of it could be valued at circa $20,000. So our value in kind contribution is that $20,000. We haven't charged for it, but it is what we've done to support that event. And I guess it's a way of reflecting the total amount of support that you've provided to an event, as opposed to, in this paper here, what we're talking about is 1 year's worth of funding. So this isn't a cash flow report, doesn't talk about what was paid the year prior or it's going to be paid in 1 or 2 years. We're talking about what's available to be distributed in 24-25.
Okay, good on you. Thank you. So where are we at? Any more questions? Nope. All right, thank you very much. That's very clear. Any debate? Nope. Like to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. That's carried. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So now we move on to the youth portfolio. This will be you. You going to put your jacket on for this?
I'd love to call Danny up to the stand, please.
Cool. All right. So, Danielle and myself have kindly presented a slide deck for us to be able to enjoy at your leisure. I would also like to introduce Danielle Endicott. So she is the youth advisor for the council, and she's the one who's going to be helping me lead this space in terms of the youth portfolio and abroad. So she is with Gary, again, superstar, and I'm going to be presenting with Danielle. She's going to chime in when needed, and I'd love to go through it. So let's kick her off. Danielle, do you want to introduce yourself? Or?
Yeah, as Tyler said, I'm Danielle Endicott. I'm the Community Development Advisor for Youth here at Christchurch City Council. You might have seen me around in my previous role in engagement, but yeah, have recently joined the Community Partnerships team, and I'm just up here today to support our youth portfolio lead.
So there's quite a lot in this portfolio, and it's quite substantial. The space is very big, and I do apologise for the lateness. It's 2 months late. And also the multicultural report is going to be coming next month, hopefully. That is currently in its draft form. And we'll move on to the sheets. So just a reminder that youth are defined as 12 to 24 on average, making up 15% of our population. There's 76,000 of our young people, which is 19% of the city's population in Christchurch. If it was between 0 and 24, there'd be quite a substantial amount more than that, probably nearing closer to 50%. Danielle, did you want to?
Yeah, so just as a bit of context, there are a few documents that guide the work that Council does in the youth space. So a few of our internal documents include the Strengthening Communities Together strategy and the Equity and Inclusion policy, and these commit us to working and uplifting our youth sector, and also hearing from a wide range of voices in our community, including our young people. And we also have the Christchurch Youth Action Plan, which Council were part of forming in partnership with a lot of different youth organisations across the city and with the voices of a lot of different young people. This document is a few years old now, so it could be quite interesting to get back in touch with the relevant stakeholders and make sure that this still represents the needs of our people in Ōtautahi, our young people.
Awesome. And actually quickly going over what Danielle was elaborating to in terms of the Youth Action Plan, there are quite a lot of points within the action plan that are being met. but there were also some being unmet. The Youth Hub was one of them, which is actually contributing very heavily to the Youth Action Plan. But there's other things that aren't related to us in terms of public transport accessibility and safety on the street. So we have had quite a few engagements with multiple organisations. The first one I'll talk about is the Christchurch Youth Council. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with them, and they are working alongside us as partners to do civics education in schools and get them to understand what youth engagement looks like and how you're able to contribute to the council level. Rerenga Awa and the Canterbury Youth Workers Collective organisation I really enjoy. They have a wide range of networks across the board, and they have something called Revision, which is youth auditing. So they do youth audits throughout all of the facilities around the city, which includes South Library. They've recently done Riccarton Mall. They've done a youth audit in Riccarton Mall, Westfield. And young people walk into the space and they give their two cents on what they could do to improve or make things better for young people around the environment. And the last one was School Strike for Climate. You probably had an email that they're going to be coming down and saying g'day on the 27th of September. I got to run a workshop with them around understanding what local government does and what central government does. So they are going to be saying g'day, so I encourage everyone to come. I'd also like to invite Danielle to talk on these too.
Yeah, just as a few updates. So the Christchurch Youth Council, there was a wee while where there was a bit of a disconnect between the flow of information between us and them, but staff have been working quite closely with them recently to sort of restore that ongoing relationship and partnership. And we're also able to recently partner with them around a bit of early engagement on an upcoming consultation. So the place-based network plan, council staff and the youth council were able to go to an event together to gather a few young voices on that topic. And then just a few updates on Rerenga Awa. So just to elaborate on the range of networks they have. So they've got a few formalised networks that focus on some of their population priority groups. So they've got a network around working with the Rainbow community, Māori communities, and they're also looking into a Pacifica network as well.
Cool. We have had the amazing vote for the Youth Hub, and we all know what's going on with the Youth Hub, so we don't need to elaborate too much on that. But the next one is a big one. So this here has been using quite a lot of my time in this portfolio, which is around city safety and youth crime in action. So YCD have been doing amazing work in the space, particularly working in the Igloo and running their fresh events across the city. Got to join Councillor Peters at the pool party last week. We had a bomb comp. And the Igloo has shown some really, really good numbers in terms of, one, the uptick in visitors. On average, I talked to them yesterday, and they said they're getting close to 100 through their doors every day, between the hours of 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and that keeps them in check. They also do barbering, they give them food, and actually I wanted to give a shout out to Kairos, who actually donate food to the Igloo for the young people to be able to have a kai. And also there is a bakery, which I've written down, just up the road.
Grizzly Bakery.
Grizzly Bakery, thank you very much, who are donating a lot of their baking goods. And they get cleaned out, they said. And I'd like to invite Danielle to talk on this slide too.
Yeah, I think the Igloo has been quite a success so far, and recently speaking to our facilities team, they've actually noticed an increase of patronage in the bus exchange overall since the Igloo's opened, and they've also received a lower amount of incidents being reported, so I think that reflects quite well on what they're doing there.
And to close on YCD, they are actually looking at training up security staff around codes of ethics and the way that we should be working with our young people. Security are doing a good job in trying to get to know the kids, but I think there are some work-ons in terms of appropriate boundaries for our young people and know what's on and what's not. And yeah, now we're going to move on to the next slide, which is predominantly my part. So I've been talking to a few organisations in the University of Canterbury and with Cheryl Doig. Now, there was something called an intergenerational fairness model, and it is adopted by the UN. And what that looks like is it is a collaborative model which ensures that there's economic development and intergenerational thinking, meaning that those get to benefit today and they also get to benefit in the future. It's a really simple tool, and throughout this strategy, we are actually talking about future generations and our own strengthening community strategy. It says it multiple times as we see here. I would like to see what else we could do in terms of that intergenerational fairness tool and the way that council does things on the day-to-day. And we'd be really surprised, actually, about how much we do in terms of intergenerational fairness, from transport to water to community. A lot of that is actually intergenerational, and we're probably already doing a lot of it. But it would be really cool to see an insight from the units about how forward-thinking they go. How far out do they plan for, and how far out do we plan for as elected members? Because quite often young people say that they're not thinking about them, and I think that if we are able to show that we are doing our very best to do that, I think that would be really beneficial. Danielle, do you have anything on this?
No. Happy to move on to the next slide.
Cool. So on page 61, you'll see the events that we've attended as youth leads, and there's been quite a lot. And it's been a really busy space for us, and we've really enjoyed the interactions we've had. The interactions we've had actually get a big shout out to the mayor over here. We had an event in that top corner there with international students from all over the world coming to enjoy the festivities at Ngāhoe Whāmarai. Danielle was there with YCD with the Igloo launch, and we've got some youth council engagements. But there's also a really innovative one that I wanted to talk about. It's called E Whiti Whiti, and it was an event for young entrepreneurs, and it's been really successful over the last few years. They come, they give a pitch, they work with local businesses to give a pitch and try and fix a problem. That night was extremely beneficial for me to see how these young minds work. A lot of them are more technologically advanced and innovative than a lot of us do think, and they brought some really good ideas. They even worked with the Antarctic Centre for a couple of them in terms of getting young people to understand what the Antarctic region looks like. Danielle, do you have anything else?
No, just to add to what you said, it has been a busy time. There's lots of things happening in the youth space, but I think that shows a lot of opportunity and shows how active and well connected the youth sector is.
Cool.
So something that Tyler and I were able to capture in this report is a few updates from our different community governance teams in the different board areas, because they're out there day to day at that grassroots level with the community. A few things that they sort of highlighted was that there's growing leadership and civic participation. There's interest in some of those spaces. So, for example, in Addington, the Manuka Rangatahi Ropu successfully advocated for a local basketball court, so it just shows that there's people interested in how they can interact with civics. And similarly, the Littleton team have seen some young people becoming more and more interested in civic matters and being part of some of their community decisions and community meetings. Another way that our boards support is through partnership and through funding, for example. So there's been a few mobile youth hubs funded in Riccarton and Linwood, and there's also initiatives like in Papanui and Northlands Mall around looking at safety of young people in the malls and how they can have community workers or youth workers on site to help support the young people coming through the mall. Do you want to add anything, Tyler?
No, all good. Actually, no, sorry, I do. I will note that each community board is different, we know that, and their approaches are different. So if you're looking at a Riccarton community board, it has a completely different population to what the East might have. But the youth actions that each community board have are specifically aligned to them. And it's really cool to see the different bespoke options and ways that they manage the young people in each community board area. It's really cool to see from the elected members be active in that space.
A few challenges that our community governance teams raised as well, that they were seeing as sort of trends across the youth sector, included some insufficient support systems for young people, so sometimes they're not having those role models in their life. Another thing was difficulties for the youth organisations themselves in securing funding and qualified staff. And then in certain areas, there's different geographic and financial barriers. So, for example, in our Banks Peninsula, transport and access to activities can be limited for some of our young people. So each area, as Tyler said, looks a bit different. Another interesting point I might raise while we're on this slide is just around our strengthening and communities funding that we recently went through. And so we actually increased the amount of funding that we put towards youth focused organisations in this financial year compared to last year. It was slightly lower than the year prior to that, but there was an increase recently.
Awesome. Next one. This is probably of interest to everyone here. The general state of the sector at the moment and how it feels. So there are some, we're noticing that central government's moving really quickly, which is great. They're moving fast and they're trying to address things that they promised to address. The Royal Commission of Inquiry into Abuse and Care was an extremely confronting one. More than 200,000 people were affected by trauma. There's also a sense of safety change in terms of bringing the cops back on the beat. That has actually received a really positive feedback from all of the community, talking about how safe they feel. And even young people feel a lot more safer, particularly in CBD, having more cops on the beat. There's also a new priority going from the CBD and Riccarton. Not unironically, Riccarton is another place that the police would like to see a bit more cops on the street. Rotherham Street is quite a interesting rubbing point for young people, and social media usage is to contribute to that. They're also tackling phone use in schools. The teachers are quite split on that. I've been to quite a lot of schools around the Rohe, and they're quite split because they're saying they're already doing it and it's going to add to that. But hey yaha. The next one is also the government have actually started bringing in a new amendment bill from Associate Health Minister Casey Costello to address youth vaping. And that is a highly significant epidemic for young people. We're seeing it everywhere. Kids as young as 10 vaping. And it's been quite confronting seeing that actually at the bus exchange. And YCD are actively engaging with those young people to ensure that they're on the right and narrow. But this bill, I believe, and I'm in support of it, would actually help address some of those issues around youth vaping. And lastly, there's also the Aotearoa Youth Declaration, which was in alignment with the UN, around telling the government exactly what young people want from every single bit of policy that they've gone through. They've got priorities and a summary. I'm happy to circulate that when needed. But you'd be surprised at some of the answers that the young people gave in terms of economic development, taxation, growing their people, education reform, so many things lined into that. All right.
Awesome. And yeah, the next 6 months, as you would have seen, it's already been a busy year in the youth space, and I'm sure that will only continue. A few things that I'd just like to put on your radar. So there is the Involve conference, which will be happening next year in August, and that's a national youth conference. In previous years, it's been in the North Island, but it's coming to Christchurch for the first time since 2005. They usually get quite good attendance, over 1,000 attendees. So that's something that our youth sector and young people are excited about. And then Tyler will be doing another report next year. And we were discussing that it could be good to capture what some of our other units are doing, those units that have touch points with young people every single day, our libraries, for example, our parks, our Gear Up program. So hopefully we mention that next time. Anything else, Tyler?
Yep.
Hey, all good, guys. Very good. Danielle and Tyler, a great comprehensive report. And the one thing that you have said, I'll pick up, vaping is going to bite us in the backside one day. It already is. It's something that if we can get on top of that would be good. Councillor Johansson's got a question.
Yeah. I mean, and again, just to acknowledge the awesome work that you've done in that space. Really cool to get that report. Just one issue that that we were dealing with as a city with YCD, particularly after the earthquake, was the issue of youth housing. And I just wondered, I know in the Youth Action Plan, there's a whole section on youth housing. And I know that we've got a greater and social affordable housing action plan with a number of things in it. But I just was really interested to know if there'd been any discussion with young people around housing as an issue. I see in that chart that you've given us, the cost of living rate's high, and there's also housing, but it's a little bit lower. But I was really, really keen to understand if there is any work program looking at the provision of housing for young people in the city and what that might look like.
Yeah, well, policy's ever changing. I mean, if you refer to 8.5 of the report, central government are changing the scope of criteria for emergency housing, and also in collaboration with budget contracts and other things related to housing and emergency housing, it's becoming a lot more difficult for young people to access those homes. Even the cuts through Oranga Tamariki has actually become quite substantial. I'm just talking on the policy here. So I think that does need to be more provision around emergency housing, and the Youth Hub will hopefully alleviate some of that pain. But there's still a lot in emergency housing, particularly in the Riccarton ward, in the Hornby ward, and in the east.
Okay, so thank you for the report. I'll put that. We've got to move in second, eh? I would say Tyler probably wants to move it.
Happy to move.
And Mark will second it. So I'll put that motion.
I just want to say, excellent report.
Excellent work,
Thank you
yes.
so much. Thanks for the work you're doing on it.
You're really gratified the.
Yeah. Could I give a shout out to Danielle and the work that she's done? She's done an amazing job with this, and Gary and John for the support too. Gary actually approached me at a youth council meeting and said, "Hey Tyler, I want to support you. What do you need?" I said, "Give me a hand, man." He goes, "I got you," and he gave me Danielle. So I appreciate it very much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you. So with that, I will put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That is carried. Now we're moving on to item 10, the Mayor's monthly report. Just a couple of... Kelly's happy to move it, and I'm happy to second it, probably. Just a couple of things I'll rip down there, just people will have read it, but I had a meeting with Minister of Finance, Nicola Willis, in my ongoing building relationships with the government, and it's for the Christchurch's future, so we can really collaborate between us and them. It's just quietly working away there. Went to the tree planting at Valentine's, 170 years, and we put a tree in Cashel Street, so that's good. And just on an aside, and it's right in the same place my father had, and I've now inherited, the fire engine that was at the Valentine's fire that had the ladder on it, and we right there in the photo that you can see is where we planted the tree, so it was all sort of nice. Yeah. Went up to Wellington to a Hydrogen to Wheels Energy Green conference, which was great, because I thought the idea, but I had to read it twice, because there was some people from Germany there, and they are light years ahead of us as far as hydrogen go, which is great. And they reiterated to us that all our energy, 99% of it in the South Island, is green. So they want us to be the hydrogen hub, so we're working on that. I went to citizenship, 320 people, which it is every month, more or less, and I've got another one next Monday. And then we did the opening, a number of us did the opening of the chlorine-free water taps, which has been received very well. I'm looking forward to seeing how many litres go through them. We're not charging anyone for it, but just to see the use, and then we can decide if we want to put some somewhere else. What else we got? Mirror Forum, we endorsed the Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan and the Regional Economic Development. We had a workshop and plan to identify key regional economic development priorities. Also, we had a hui with Environment Canterbury, the governor to governor one, which was good. And one thing that a lot of us are pressing is, amongst other things like PT Futures and things, but it's flood protection and river management and strengthening partnerships with Ngāi Tahu. What else we do? This week we had a briefing yesterday on the NLTP, National Land Transport Program, which is going to be challenging for all of us because the money bucket's not as big as it was. So that going forward, that's going to be quite interesting to see how we get through that. And then on the last page, it's just a lot of things that I'm doing over the next month. So, yes.
A bit of a plug, really. I see that you've got an event coming up at Ferrymead Heritage Park for its reopening on the 29th of September. Is that the one starting at 10 o'clock with a full day of events for family and everything to go to? I mean, I think we do support Ferrymead, and I think everyone should know about it.
Actually, yes, I think
they've been closed for the winter, haven't they?
They've been closed for 3 months to just get their head around what they're doing. So
yeah,
we've all renovating, and I've always been a fan of that. So I'll certainly be there and encourage anyone else to come along because it's already there.
Is it?
It's in the shed.
Yeah, get it out.
Yeah, it's an 85-foot wooden ladder, and I'm more than happy to put you on the end of it and poke it up in the air.
Quite sure how to take that.
Okay, we're moving the report. All those in favour? Aye, thank you. And against? Thank you. That's carried. Brilliant. So now we're going to move into public excluded, just noting that there are declarations of interest from Councillor McDonald and Councillor Templeton in items 12 and 13. Right, so who will...